I'm grateful you joined tonight. Right now, as you rest here, your brain is preparing to create entire worlds you'll believe are real. Until that strange moment when you suddenly know you're dreaming. You'll discover what happens in your mind during that realization and understand why some dreams let you wake up inside them. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep. Wherever you are right now, perhaps wondering about those rare nights when you knew you were dreaming, or curious about that uncanny feeling of waking up without opening your eyes. Allow yourself this gentle exploration. We'll journey through 100 psychology facts about lucid dreams and awareness. From the moment your brain recognizes the impossible, to the neural switch that gives you control, to what consciousness means when you're asleep but aware. This thoughtful journey through consciousness builds bridges between searching minds. Your gentle support, a like, subscribe or a quiet share, creates a pathway for more dream seekers to discover and brings us closer to protect this sanctuary for every tired mind who finds their way here. One peaceful night, one sleepy soul at a time. Let yourself settle completely here. Feel your jaw unclench, your breath deepen naturally. You can let these thoughts drift past without holding them. Sense that soothing heaviness enveloping you, like your consciousness slowly dimming its brightness. Thoughts dissolving into the peaceful fog of approaching sleep. Safe and undisturbed. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're floating where memories rest safely in gentle darkness. Let your mind merge with infinite peace. And now we begin. A lucid dream is any dream where you know you're dreaming while it's happening. This simple definition describes something quite remarkable. You're asleep. Your body is paralyzed. Your eyes are moving rapidly beneath closed lids. Yet, somewhere in your consciousness, you recognize that none of what you're experiencing is real. The term lucid comes from the Latin word for clear or bright, coined by Dutch psychiatrist Frederik van Eden in 1913 after he documented his own experiences. Recent surveys suggest that more than half of people have experienced at least one lucid dream in their lifetime, while roughly 1 in 4 report having them monthly. These numbers have remained fairly consistent across cultures, suggesting lucid dreaming is a natural human capacity. Not something rare or mystical, just uncommonly noticed. The moment you realize you're dreaming usually arrives in one of several recognizable ways. Sometimes you notice something impossible. You're flying, or breathing underwater, or a loved one who passed away is standing before you. Other times it's a feeling of wrongness, like text that keeps changing when you look away and back, or light switches that don't work. Some people report a sudden clarity, as if a fog lifts and they simply know, without needing evidence. Research from sleep laboratories has found that reality testing, checking if you're dreaming by trying to push your finger through your palm or reading text twice, accounts for roughly 1/3 of lucid dream triggers. The remaining experiences happen spontaneously, suggesting our brains have natural mechanisms for detecting dream states. When you become lucid, you're experiencing a hybrid state of consciousness that researchers call a paradoxical condition. Your brain is generating the dream, creating people, to places, sensations, narrative, while simultaneously observing and critiquing that creation. It's like being both the filmmaker and the audience at once. Neuroscientist Dr. Ursula Voss at Frankfurt University has studied this state using EEG measurements and found that lucid dreaming creates a unique brainwave signature, showing increased activity in the frontal cortex. the region associated with self-awareness and logical thinking, while the rest of the brain remains in REM sleep patterns. This dual activation, awake-like frontal activity during dream sleep, remains unique to lucidity, absent in normal dreams and impossible during regular waking life. Most lucid dreams happen during REM sleep, particularly in the later cycles of the night. REM sleep occurs in roughly 90-minute cycles, with each cycle containing more REM time as the night progresses. Your first REM period might last only 5 to 10 minutes, occurring about 90 minutes after you fall asleep. But by morning, your REM periods can stretch beyond 45 minutes, sometimes lasting an hour or more. This is why lucid dreams most commonly occur in the early morning hours, between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. for most people. The extended REM periods give you more time in the dream state, and your brain is closer to waking consciousness during these later cycles. Before lucid dreaming became a legitimate research topic, scientists weren't entirely sure it was real. Some researchers thought people were either lying, misremembering, or briefly waking during dreams and confusing the experience. The breakthrough came in 1975, when Dr. Keith Hearn at the University of Hull in England designed an experiment. He asked lucid dreamer Alan Worsley to signal from inside a lucid dream by moving his eyes in a predetermined pattern: left, right, left, right. The eye muscles aren't paralyzed during REM sleep like the rest of the body. When Worsley successfully sent the eye movement signal while remaining asleep, measured on an electroencephalogram, it provided the first objective proof that lucid dreaming was a real, measurable phenomenon. Dr. Stephen LaBerge at Stanford University replicated and expanded this research throughout the 1980s, developing techniques to help people achieve lucidity and studying what happens in the brain during these experiences. His laboratory established that lucid dreamers can communicate with researchers through pre-arranged eye movement signals, answer yes or no questions, and even time intervals inside their dreams. In one famous experiment, lucid dreamers were asked to hold their breath in the dream, then signal when they started and stopped. The researchers found that holding your breath in a lucid dream actually affects your real breathing patterns, creating a measurable reduction in respiration, showing that dream experiences can directly influence physical body responses even during sleep. Understanding what lucid dreams are means distinguishing them from other sleep experiences. False awakenings, where you dream you've woken up but you're still asleep, aren't lucid unless you realize it's a dream. Sleep paralysis, where you wake but can't move, involves awareness but you're not dreaming anymore. And vivid dreams, no matter how intense or memorable, aren't lucid unless you know while they're happening that they're dreams. The defining characteristic is always meta-awareness, the awareness of awareness itself. You're conscious that you're experiencing a dream, not a conscious experience mistaken for reality. That distinction, simple as it sounds, represents a significant shift in brain activity. In regular dreams, you accept bizarre scenarios without question. Your childhood home might have 17 extra rooms, and that feels completely normal. You can breathe underwater, fly by willing it, or speak fluent languages you don't actually know. And none of this triggers suspicion. This happens because the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for logic, self-reflection, and critical thinking. Shows reduced activity during normal REM sleep. Brain imaging studies from the Max Planck Institute have confirmed that this region essentially goes offline during regular dreams, which explains why dream logic feels perfectly reasonable until you wake and realize how unusual it was. When you become lucid, that same dorsolateral prefrontal cortex suddenly shows increased activity, lighting up on brain scans while the rest of your brain maintains dream state patterns. It's as if one part of your mind wakes up while the rest stays asleep. This partial awakening explains why lucid dreams feel different from both regular dreams and waking life. You have access to logical thinking and memory that normal dreams lack, but you're still experiencing the vivid, immersive, emotionally intense world that only REM sleep can generate. You exist in a space between sleeping and waking. The realization that you're dreaming often brings a surge of excitement, and this is actually one of the biggest challenges lucid dreamers face. That excitement can be strong enough to gently pull you back to waking, ending the dream before you can do anything with your newfound awareness. Research from sleep laboratories has found that experienced lucid dreamers learn to manage this emotional response, staying calm when lucidity hits, which allows them to remain in the dream state longer. The ability to maintain lucidity without destabilizing the dream appears to be a learnable skill, improving with practice. So yes, lucid dreams are already changing our understanding of consciousness by revealing that awareness exists on a spectrum, not as a simple on-off switch. You can be aware while unconscious, conscious while hallucinating, and thinking critically while completely paralyzed and asleep. These hybrid states suggest that consciousness isn't one unified thing, but rather a collection of processes that can be mixed and matched in different combinations. What we call being awake is just one particular configuration. Lucid dreaming gives us another configuration, a natural, altered state that's teaching researchers about the fundamental nature of subjective experience. The moment of realization varies in intensity. Sometimes it arrives gently, like slowly remembering something you'd forgotten. Other times it hits like a lightning bolt, a sudden, unmistakable knowing. Dr. Jennifer Wint, a philosopher and dream researcher at Monash University, describes this as the difference between dim lucidity and bright lucidity. In dim lucidity, you might suspect you're dreaming but remain uncertain, drifting in and out of critical awareness. In bright lucidity, there's no doubt whatsoever. You know with absolute certainty that you're dreaming, and that knowing changes everything. Some people report that in their lucid dreams, they can think about their sleeping body lying in bed, remember conversations from earlier that day, and even make plans for what to do when they wake up. This level of self-reflection, called meta-consciousness, represents the highest form of lucidity. Studies using advanced EEG measurements have found that during these peak moments of lucidity, brain activity in the precuneus region increases significantly. The precuneus is associated with self-referential thought, thinking about your self-thinking, awareness of your own awareness. Your sleeping brain doesn't just create the dream world. It creates your sense of self inside that world. In regular dreams, you might be yourself, a different version of yourself, or even someone else entirely, and it feels natural. But when you become lucid, there's suddenly a separation. There's the character in the dream, and there's you. the awareness, watching and experiencing everything. This split creates what philosophers call the observing self and the experiencing self. You can observe yourself moving through the dream landscape while simultaneously experiencing everything firsthand. The ability to recognize your dreaming requires memory, specifically the memory of what waking life is like and how it differs from this. In regular dreams, you often can't remember basic facts about your waking life: where you live, what year it is, recent events. But in lucid dreams, memory function improves dramatically. Research shows that the hippocampus, your brain's memory center, shows increased connectivity with the prefrontal cortex during lucid dreaming, creating better access to autobiographical memories that help you recognize the dream state. Interestingly, becoming lucid doesn't necessarily give you control over the dream. Lucidity is awareness. Control is something different. You might know you're dreaming but find you still can't fly when you try. Or you can't make people appear or change the scene at will. Research published by Dr. Tadas Stumbris at Heidelberg University shows that only about 65% of lucid dreams involve any level of control. And even then, control is often partial and unstable, like trying to conduct an orchestra that sometimes ignores your directions. Some researchers distinguish between different levels of lucidity. The lowest level is pre-lucid dreams, where you notice something strange but don't quite conclude you're dreaming. You might think, this is unusual, but accept it anyway. The next level is semi-lucid, where you suspect you might be dreaming but aren't certain. Full lucidity means you know with confidence you're dreaming. And the highest level, sometimes called super-lucidity, includes full awareness, stable control, and complete access to waking memories and critical thinking. Though this state is rare and difficult to maintain, the question of what triggers that initial moment of recognition fascinates researchers. Why do some bizarre elements in dreams go unnoticed, while others suddenly make you realize you're dreaming? Dr. Alan Hobson, the late dream researcher from Harvard, proposed that the trigger is often emotional rather than logical. An experience in the dream creates an emotional response that doesn't match the scenario. You feel grief but can't remember why. Or you feel joy that seems disconnected from what's happening. And that mismatch jolts you into awareness. Cultural background affects how people interpret lucid dreams. Western research tends to frame lucid dreaming in terms of control, mastery, and personal achievement. But in Tibetan Buddhist dream yoga traditions, which have practiced lucid dreaming for over 1,000 years, the goal isn't control, but rather recognizing the dreamlike nature of all experience. Waking and sleeping. The practice is seen as spiritual training, a way to understand that even waking life has a constructed, impermanent quality similar to dreams. Children seem to have lucid dreams more frequently than adults. Though research in this area is limited by the difficulty of studying children's sleep, surveys from sleep research centers suggest that children between ages 6 and 12 report lucid dreaming more often than teenagers or adults. Researchers speculate this might be because children's boundary between imagination and reality is already more fluid, making the transition to recognizing a dream state easier. Or simply because they haven't yet learned to dismiss unusual experiences as just dreams. The emotional tone of lucid dreams differs from regular dreams. Most regular dreams are neutral or mildly negative, often involving everyday scenarios with occasional frustration or mild anxiety. But lucid dreams, according to research from dream science organizations, tend to be more intensely positive. The realization that you're dreaming often brings a sense of wonder, joyful curiosity, or peaceful freedom. There's a quality of possibility, safety, and liberation that transforms the emotional landscape. Not everyone wants to have lucid dreams. Some people find the experience unsettling, feeling that dreams should remain spontaneous and mysterious. Others report that lucid dreams feel less restful, as if their mind didn't fully disengage from conscious effort. A smaller number of lucid dreamers describe feelings of existential uncertainty. If the dream feels so real, how do you know waking life isn't also some kind of dream? These philosophical questions, while intriguing, can create unease for some. The scientific study of lucid dreaming remains relatively small compared to other areas of sleep research. Most studies involve modest sample sizes because finding reliable lucid dreamers and getting them to produce lucid dreams in a laboratory setting is challenging. People who can lucid dream on command are rare, and even frequent lucid dreamers can't always produce lucidity under the pressure of laboratory observation. Yet the field continues to grow with new technologies and international collaboration. Despite these challenges, research is accelerating. New technologies, including more sophisticated brain imaging techniques and real-time sleep monitoring, are making it easier to study lucid dreams as they happen. Research teams in Germany, the United States, Japan, and Australia are actively investigating questions about consciousness, learning, creativity, and even potential therapeutic applications. What was once considered a fringe topic is gradually becoming a legitimate area of neuroscience and psychology. These observations reveal that lucid dreaming isn't just a curiosity or entertainment. It's a window into how consciousness works. By studying what happens when awareness emerges during sleep, researchers are learning about the neural basis of self-reflection, the relationship between brain activity and subjective experience, and the flexibility of consciousness itself. The question shifts from what are lucid dreams to what do lucid dreams teach us about the nature of awareness. Let's pause here and notice your body. As you breathe out slowly, appreciate each tiny cell inside. Trillions of organisms working in silence, heart beating, lungs breathing, brain thinking, all without your command. Notice the gentle sensations on your skin, in your muscles, along your spine. You are a complete ecosystem, diverse, self-balancing. Now we continue. When you become lucid, specific, measurable changes occur in your brain almost immediately. Electroencephalogram studies show an increase in gamma-band brainwave activity, particularly in the frontal regions of the brain. Gamma waves, which oscillate at roughly 40 cycles per second, are associated with higher cognitive functions, conscious perception, and the binding together of different pieces of information into a coherent experience. During regular dreams, gamma activity is suppressed, but the moment lucidity hits, gamma power increases significantly, particularly in the 25 to 40 Hz range, suggesting that your brain is suddenly integrating information more actively and coherently than it does during normal dreaming. Dr. Martin Dressler at the Donders Institute in the Netherlands has conducted groundbreaking research using functional MRI to map blood flow in the brain during lucid dreams. He found increased activity not just in the prefrontal cortex, but also in the temporoparietal junction, a region involved in distinguishing self from other and understanding perspectives. This suggests that becoming lucid involves not just waking up your logical thinking, but also activating the parts of your brain that track your sense of self in space, your body boundaries, and your relationship to the environment around you. Your brain rebuilds a model of you inside the dream. One of the most fascinating findings is that lucid dreamers show increased connectivity between the anterior prefrontal cortex and the temporoparietal association areas. These connections are typically strong during waking life, but weakened during non-lucid REM sleep. The restoration of this connectivity during lucid dreaming suggests that the brain is temporarily reinstating a waking-like network architecture while still maintaining the dream generation process. It's not that one part of your brain fully wakes while another sleeps, but rather that specific communication pathways between regions reactivate, creating a hybrid consciousness state that has properties of both sleep and wakefulness. Your brain's ability to generate sensory experiences during dreams is remarkably capable. Visual, auditory, and tactile sensations in dreams can feel completely real because they activate the same sensory processing regions that respond to actual physical stimuli. When you see something in a dream, your visual cortex is active. When you hear something, your auditory cortex responds. Research from Yale University using high-resolution imaging has shown that lucid dreams don't diminish this sensory richness. In fact, lucid dreamers often report heightened sensory detail, noticing colors, textures, and sounds with unusual clarity once they become aware they're dreaming. The experience of having a body in a dream, complete with the sensation of movement, weight, and physical presence, involves your motor cortex and proprioceptive systems. When you walk in a dream, your brain activates the same motor planning regions that fire when you walk in waking life, even though your actual muscles are paralyzed by REM atonia. Lucid dreamers who practice physical skills in their dreams, playing piano, rehearsing dance moves, practicing martial arts, show activation patterns in motor areas that closely resemble actual physical practice, suggesting dream practice might have real benefits. Scientists are particularly interested in whether skills learned or practiced in lucid dreams can transfer to waking performance. Initial research is promising but mixed. Studies have had lucid dreamers practice finger-tapping sequences during lucid dreams and found modest improvements in speed and accuracy when tested while awake. However, the improvements were smaller than gains from actual physical practice and didn't persist as long. The brain can strengthen motor patterns during lucid dream practice, but without actual sensory feedback from muscles and tendons, the learning appears less robust. Time perception in lucid dreams is another area of active investigation. Some lucid dreamers report that time feels slowed down or expanded. That minutes in the dream feel like much longer periods. Objective measurements, however, suggest that time passes roughly at the same rate in dreams as in waking life. When lucid dreamers were asked to estimate 10-second intervals by counting in their dream and signaling with eye movements, their estimates matched real time reasonably well. Though with some individual variation, the boundary between your sense of self and the dream environment becomes interesting during lucidity. In regular dreams, you're completely identified with the dream character, fully immersed without perspective. But lucid dreamers often describe a curious doubling. They feel like they're both in the dream body and somehow watching from outside, or positioned slightly behind their dream eyes. Research suggests that the brain maintains a dual representation during lucidity, tracking both the dream avatar and a more abstract sense of observing awareness. Emotions during lucid dreams can be influenced to some degree, but not completely. If you're having a nightmare and become lucid, you can often reduce the fear by reminding yourself it's not real, or by deliberately trying to change the scenario. However, research shows that even lucid dreamers still experience genuine emotions, sometimes quite intensely. The limbic system, your emotional brain, remains active during REM sleep, regardless of lucidity. You can modulate emotions, redirect them, or choose not to engage with them, but you can't simply turn them off. The prefrontal cortex, despite reactivating during lucid dreams, doesn't function exactly as it does when you're awake. Researchers have found that working memory, your ability to hold and manipulate information temporarily, remains impaired even during lucid dreams. This is why lucid dreamers often struggle to remember specific intentions they set while awake, like "I want to visit the ocean," or "I'll look for a specific person." The dream state still constrains certain cognitive abilities. The brain's default mode network, active when you're awake, but not focused on external tasks, shows unusual patterns during lucid dreaming. This network, involved in self-referential thought, mind wandering, and constructing narratives about yourself, typically decreases during non-lucid dreams. But during lucidity, parts of the default mode network reactivate, particularly regions associated with self-awareness and metacognition. Your brain starts asking questions about itself again. What am I experiencing? Why am I here? What does this mean? Questions that don't arise during normal dreams. Neurotransmitter changes also play a role. During REM sleep, levels of acetylcholine are very high, which contributes to the vividness and bizarreness of dreams, while levels of serotonin, norepinephrine, and histamine are very low, which may contribute to the lack of critical thinking. Lucid dreaming appears to involve a shift in this neurochemical balance, though exactly how is still being researched. Some studies suggest increased activity in noradrenergic systems during lucidity, which could help restore some executive functions. The role of the thalamus, your brain's sensory relay station, is also significant. During waking life, the thalamus gates sensory information from the outside world to your cortex. During dreams, the thalamus helps generate internal sensory experiences by sending signals to sensory cortices without external input. Research suggests that during lucid dreams, thalamic activity shows a pattern intermediate between waking and non-lucid dreaming, possibly reflecting the brain's dual processing of internally generated dream content and metacognitive awareness. Brain plasticity during sleep has implications for lucid dreaming. Sleep is when the brain consolidates memories, prunes unnecessary neural connections, and strengthens important ones. Lucid dreamers who regularly experience awareness during sleep may be reinforcing neural pathways associated with self-reflection and metacognition even while unconscious. Some researchers speculate that frequent lucid dreaming might gradually enhance overall metacognitive abilities, making people more aware of their thought processes during waking life as well. Though this hypothesis needs more testing, this evidence suggests that lucid dreaming represents a distinct state of consciousness with its own neural signature. It's not simply being awake while asleep or conscious during REM sleep, but rather a unique configuration of brain activity that combines elements of both states while remaining fully distinct from either. The brain during lucidity is doing something it doesn't normally do, activating patterns that don't occur naturally in other contexts, revealing just how flexible and reconfigurable human consciousness can be. You're still here with me. Thoughts, still flickering like candle light. Just notice. Don't judge. Just notice where your mind is. We're exploring consciousness itself, the very thing doing the exploring right now. Strange, beautiful, and perfectly calm. Let's drift onward together. If lucid dreams allow conscious experience during sleep, the question naturally arises, can they be used therapeutically? The answer appears to be yes, at least for certain conditions. Recurrent nightmares, particularly those associated with post-traumatic stress disorder, can sometimes be addressed through lucid dream therapy. The approach, called lucid dreaming therapy for nightmares, teaches people to recognize when they're having their recurring nightmare and then either change the dream or simply remind themselves it isn't real. Reducing the emotional intensity. Research from sleep clinics has shown significant reduction in nightmare frequency and distress among PTSD patients who learn to become lucid during nightmares. Though the technique doesn't work for everyone and requires considerable practice. Dr. Jane Gackenbach, who has studied lucid dreaming for over 40 years, discovered something unexpected about video gamers. People who frequently play immersive video games report higher rates of lucid dreaming than non-gamers. Her research suggests that the cognitive skills developed through gaming, navigating virtual environments, making rapid decisions, maintaining awareness of the game as a game while still being immersed, transfer to dreams. Gamers appear to have an easier time recognizing the dreamlike quality of their dreams because they're accustomed to inhabiting virtual realities. They're also less likely to experience nightmares. And when they do, they're more likely to feel in control rather than helpless. The relationship between lucid dreaming and mindfulness meditation is particularly intriguing. Both practices involve metacognitive awareness, paying attention to your own mental processes. Studies have found that people who practice mindfulness meditation regularly are significantly more likely to have spontaneous lucid dreams than non-meditators. The mechanisms overlap. Meditation trains you to notice when your mind wanders, to observe thoughts without being carried away by them, to maintain awareness of awareness itself. These same skills help you notice when you're dreaming. Some meditation traditions, particularly Tibetan dream yoga, explicitly use this connection, treating lucid dreaming as a continuation of meditative practice during sleep. Creativity researchers are interested in whether lucid dreams can enhance creative problem-solving or artistic inspiration. The dream state already generates novel combinations of ideas, unusual associations, and scenarios impossible in waking life. Adding conscious direction could potentially amplify this. Salvador Dali famously used hypnagogic imagery, the dreamlike visions that occur as you fall asleep, to inspire his surrealist paintings. Some lucid dreamers report deliberately seeking creative inspiration in their lucid dreams, asking dream characters for advice, exploring landscapes for visual ideas, or composing music. Whether this actually enhances creativity beyond normal dreaming or waking imagination remains unclear, but the subjective reports are compelling. Some people find themselves drawn deeply to lucid dreams, sometimes prioritizing sleep over waking activities, deliberately sleeping longer or napping frequently to have more lucid experiences. While this doesn't meet clinical criteria for addiction in most cases, it raises questions about balance. Dreams, even lucid ones, are ultimately generated by your own mind. Time spent lucid dreaming is still time spent in a self-contained mental simulation rather than engaging with actual people, environments, and challenges. The relationship between exploration and withdrawal matters, just as it does with any absorbing activity. Philosophically, lucid dreaming raises ancient questions about the nature of reality and perception. If a dream can feel completely real until you realize it's a dream, what does that suggest about waking experience? This question appears in various forms across cultures. Zhuangzi's butterfly dream in ancient Chinese philosophy, the Maya concept in Hinduism, the simulation hypothesis in contemporary philosophy. Lucid dreaming doesn't answer these questions, but it makes them feel immediate rather than abstract. We'll return to this question as we journey deeper. The ethics of lucid dreaming deserve consideration, particularly regarding actions taken in dreams. If you know you're dreaming, does it matter what you do? Most philosophers and psychologists would say it matters, because dream behaviors might reinforce mental patterns or reflect your values, even if there are no external consequences. Others argue that dreams are a safe space to explore taboo thoughts or behaviors precisely because there are no real victims or consequences. Research on this topic is limited, but surveys suggest most lucid dreamers behave in dreams roughly as they would while awake. Lucid dreaming might offer insights into consciousness disorders. Patients in minimally conscious states or emerging from comas show some awareness but can't communicate effectively. Understanding how awareness functions during lucid dreaming, how it emerges, fluctuates, and relates to brain activity, might eventually inform how we assess consciousness in patients who can't respond verbally. Research groups in Belgium and Italy are exploring these connections, looking at whether the neural signatures of lucidity share features with the neural signatures of emerging consciousness in patients with brain injuries. Though this work is still in very early stages, the question of control within lucid dreams reveals something important about the nature of the unconscious mind. Even when you know you're dreaming, the dream continues to generate content without your conscious direction. Characters appear and speak without you deciding their words. Environments shift and transform. Narratives unfold. This suggests that the unconscious creative process continues running in the background even when consciousness observes it. You might steer the ship, but you don't control the ocean or the weather. Halfway through our journey, the answer is emerging. Lucid dreams aren't just entertaining oddities. They're evidence that consciousness is more flexible, more layered, and more mysterious than we typically acknowledge. They reveal that awareness can exist in degrees and kinds, that sleep and wakefulness aren't binary opposites, but points on a spectrum, and that the boundary between observing and experiencing is surprisingly fluid. What happens when you realize you're dreaming? You discover that you can split into observer and experiencer. That reality is, in part, constructed by expectation. Let each breath guide you to realize time is yours, a separate stream that only you are living. While the vast universe continues to spin, expand, change. This second you're breathing, listening, is unique. Cherish the present moment, knowing that right now, your time is unique in the universe. and we continue drifting. We now understand that consciousness isn't simply on or off, present or absent. Lucid dreaming demonstrates that you can have awareness without external sensory input, metacognition without wakefulness, and vivid subjective experiences without corresponding events in the physical world. These insights have implications far beyond sleep science. They inform theories of consciousness in philosophy, neuroscience, and even artificial intelligence research. If machines ever develop consciousness, it might not look like human waking consciousness at all. It might be more like lucid dreaming, self-aware but operating on internally generated content, conscious but not grounded in sensory reality. The phenomenon of dream characters, the people who appear in your dreams, becomes particularly interesting during lucidity. When you're not lucid, dream characters seem completely autonomous, saying and doing unpredictable things. But lucid dreamers report a curious experience, asking a dream character, "Do you know you're in my dream?" Some characters seem confused by the question. Others acknowledge it. A few even thank the dreamer for creating them. These interactions, while entirely generated by your own mind, can feel genuinely surprising and emotionally meaningful, raising questions about the complexity of unconscious mental processes. Some lucid dreamers practice using dreams for problem solving. The technique involves becoming lucid, then consciously posing a question or problem and exploring the dream environment for answers. While there's limited scientific validation, anecdotal reports suggest this sometimes works. The chemist Auguste Kekule famously solved the structure of benzene after a dream about a snake biting its tail. While his dream likely wasn't lucid, the principle is similar. The dreaming mind can generate solutions that conscious logical thinking might miss, and lucidity might allow you to direct that creative process. The persistence of memory after waking is stronger for lucid dreams than for regular dreams. Studies have found that people recall lucid dreams in greater detail and for longer periods than non-lucid dreams. This makes sense given that the memory encoding regions of the brain are more active during lucidity. But it also means that powerful experiences in lucid dreams, joy, wonder, fear, grief, can stay with you emotionally for days or even years, sometimes with the same intensity as waking memories. False awakenings, where you dream that you've woken up, can be particularly confusing during lucid dreaming. You might become lucid, explore the dream, then dream that you wake up in your bed, losing lucidity in the process. Some people experience multiple layers of false awakenings, waking from dream to dream several times before actually waking. These experiences demonstrate how your brain's model of waking up is itself just a pattern of neural activation that can be triggered within a dream state. The question of shared dreaming. Can two people meet in the same dream? Occasionally arises in lucid dreaming communities. Despite numerous anecdotal claims, there's no scientific evidence that this is possible. Each person's dreams are generated by their own brain, and there's no known mechanism for two brains to share dream content in real time. Apparent instances of shared dreams likely result from coincidence, suggestion, or false memories. Dreams remain private, subjective experiences. Even when you're lucid, dream language is impaired in interesting ways. Lucid dreamers who try to read text in dreams often find it changes when they look away and back, or dissolves into meaningless symbols. This happens because the brain areas that process written language aren't functioning normally during REM sleep. Speaking in dreams works better than reading or writing, but even speech can be slurred or difficult to control. Mathematics is particularly challenging. Lucid dreamers report being unable to perform even simple arithmetic accurately in dreams. Light, in lucid dreams, behaves according to your expectations rather than physical laws. You can create light without a source, cast shadows that defy geometry, or see perfectly in absolute darkness. Lucid dreamers who deliberately test this by turning off lights in dreams often find they can still see, or that new light sources spontaneously appear. Your brain generates visual experience based on prediction and expectation, not actual photons. So dream physics bend to mental rules. Pain in lucid dreams is generally diminished or absent, even when the dream includes situations that would be agonizing in waking life. This makes sense. Pain is a signal that something is damaging your body, and your body is safely paralyzed in bed. However, emotional pain can be quite intense. Grief, heartbreak, shame, or fear in lucid dreams can feel overwhelming despite the intellectual knowledge that it's not real, showing the independence of emotional processing. The use of technology in lucid dreams follows dream logic rather than real physics. Phones don't work properly, or they transform into other objects. Computers display impossible interfaces. Vehicles behave unpredictably. This happens because your brain has no reason to simulate the complex internal workings of technology during a dream. It generates just enough detail to match your expectations. And when you look closely or try to interact in detail, the simulation breaks down. Mirrors in dreams have a reputation for being unsettling or unpredictable. When lucid dreamers look in dream mirrors, they sometimes see themselves clearly, but often see distorted reflections, other people, or shifting images. This might occur because generating an accurate mirror reflection requires your brain to render the scene twice: the direct view and the reflected view, which is computationally expensive. Your dreaming mind takes shortcuts, sometimes creating disturbing results. Flying is one of the most commonly reported activities in lucid dreams, probably because it's impossible in waking life, but intuitively feels like it should be possible. The experience varies. Some people fly like Superman. Others float gently. Some need to flap their arms. Learning to fly consistently in lucid dreams often takes practice, as doubt or lack of confidence can cause you to fall, showing how expectation shapes dream physics. The sensation of waking up inside a dream, becoming lucid, has been compared to spiritual experiences by some practitioners. There's a quality of liberation, expanded possibility, and heightened awareness that feels meaningful beyond simple entertainment. Religious and contemplative traditions in Buddhism, Hinduism, and indigenous cultures have long recognized lucid dreaming as a valuable state, treating it as a practice ground for awareness rather than just an interesting phenomenon. Attempts to communicate with researchers from inside a lucid dream remain limited to simple eye movement signals and, recently, rudimentary responses using facial muscle movements. Researchers at Northwestern University and international collaborators successfully demonstrated two-way communication with lucid dreamers, asking simple math questions that dreamers answered with pre-arranged facial muscle movements. This crude communication channel opens possibilities for real-time study of cognition during dreams. Though the bandwidth remains extremely limited, we now understand that the sleeping brain isn't simply inactive or resting. It's generating entire worlds of experience, complete with sensory richness, emotional depth, narrative structure, and causal logic. Lucid dreaming adds a layer of self-awareness to this generative process, creating a feedback loop where consciousness observes and influences its own content creation. This reveals the brain as fundamentally creative, constantly constructing reality rather than passively receiving it. The boundary between self and world is constructed by your brain in both waking and dreaming. During waking life, sensory information from your body and environment feeds into this construction, grounding it in physical reality. During dreams, the construction continues without that sensory input, which is why dream bodies and environments can violate physical laws. Lucid dreaming reveals this construction process by allowing you to observe it happening. Some researchers propose that understanding lucid dreaming could help develop better virtual reality technologies. The dream state represents the brain's native virtual reality system, perfected over millions of years of evolution. By studying how the brain generates convincing environments, characters, and experiences during dreams, engineers might learn principles for creating more immersive, believable simulated worlds, though the application of this knowledge is still largely theoretical. The future of lucid dreaming research includes brain stimulation techniques. Researchers have experimented with transcranial direct current stimulation, applying weak electrical currents to the scalp during REM sleep to enhance frontal cortex activity and potentially trigger lucidity. Studies show modest success in increasing lucidity rates, though the technique requires more refinement and safety testing before widespread use. Dreams might serve multiple functions: memory consolidation, emotional processing, threat simulation, creative problem solving, and lucid dreaming potentially allows people to consciously access and direct some of these processes. Whether this is beneficial or interferes with natural sleep functions isn't yet clear. Some researchers wonder whether frequently inducing lucidity might disrupt the normal restorative functions of sleep, though evidence for harm is currently lacking. The relationship between lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences is complicated. Some people report that lucid dreams transition into sensations of floating above their sleeping body or traveling to distant locations. While these experiences are subjectively real to the experiencer, research suggests they're elaborated dream content rather than actual separation of consciousness from body, as the brain activity remains consistent with REM sleep. Ancient cultures developed lucid dreaming practices without modern neuroscience. Tibetan Buddhist dream yoga, shamanic traditions in Siberia and the Americas, and Aboriginal Australian dreamtime practices all recognized that awareness could persist during sleep. These traditions approached lucid dreaming as spiritual practice rather than scientific curiosity. But they discovered many of the same techniques modern researchers now study and validate. The stability of lucid dreams varies. Some last only seconds before you either wake up or lose lucidity and slip back into regular dreaming. Others persist for what feels like extended periods, though objective time measurements suggest even long lucid dreams rarely exceed 15 to 20 minutes. Learning to stabilize lucidity, maintaining awareness without waking or losing lucidity, is one of the skills experienced lucid dreamers develop. personal growth through lucid dreaming remains largely anecdotal. Many practitioners report that lucid dreaming increased their self-awareness, reduced anxiety, improved creativity, or provided meaningful insights. However, controlled studies on these benefits are scarce. The subjective value people find in lucid dreaming varies widely, from profound and life-changing to interesting but ultimately superficial, depending on individual personality and approach. The sleeping brain doesn't distinguish between real and imagined experiences very well. This is why dreams can feel completely convincing and why lucid dream practice can benefit waking skills. Your motor cortex activates when you imagine moving, just as it does when you actually move, though with less intensity. This neural reality explains dream emotions, dream fears, dream joys. So yes, lucid dreaming has taught us that the mind constructs reality continuously, both sleeping and waking. The difference is the source of information, sensory data versus internal generation. Awareness can observe this construction process, creating meta levels of consciousness. You're not a passive receiver of experience, but an active creator, whether you realize it or not. You might be feeling tired now. That's perfectly fine. Breathe slowly. Feel the cycles. Spacecraft orbit Earth. Earth orbits the Sun. The Sun orbits the center of the Milky Way. All are circles, cycles, endless orbits, like your breath. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. A small cycle within the vast universe. You are also part of that eternal movement. You don't need to hold on to anything. Let everything unfold in its perfect order, like planets silently rotating in their orbits. Unhurried, unresisting, simply existing. We're almost there now. In your lucid dreams, you glimpse something profound about consciousness itself, that awareness can layer upon awareness, that you can watch yourself watching, think about thinking, dream about dreaming. This recursive quality, this ability to fold back on itself, may be what makes consciousness feel like something, rather than just information processing. The hard problem of consciousness, why subjective experience exists at all, doesn't get solved by lucid dreaming, but it becomes more vivid, more immediate. When you wake from a lucid dream, you carry back the memory of having been aware in two places at once. Inside the dream, experiencing everything, and somehow outside it observing. This dual perspective doesn't exist in normal dreams or normal waking life. It's a third state, showing that the architecture of consciousness is more flexible than you usually realize. You are not fixed in one mode of being. You can shift, reconfigure, inhabit different relationships to experience. The question, who is the dreamer, becomes strange during lucidity. You're dreaming, but you didn't consciously decide the dream's content before falling asleep. Characters speak without you writing their dialogue. Scenes appear without you designing them. Yet you're the source. It's all generated by your own brain. So there's you, the conscious observer, and you, the unconscious creator. Apparently two aspects of one mind, often surprising each other. This division hints at the multiplicity within. You're not one unified self, but a collection of processes, subsystems, voices, and perspectives that usually operate in coordination but can separate. During lucid dreams, the separation becomes conscious. The part that plans and reflects emerges during a process that normally happens without planning or reflection. And in that gap, you discover depth within yourself you didn't know was there. The experience of dissolving a nightmare through lucidity demonstrates the power of perspective. The nightmare loses its grip, not because the content changes. The scary scenario might remain, but because your relationship to it transforms. You know it's a dream. That knowing creates distance, safety, choice. The same principle applies to waking anxiety or fear. Sometimes the content matters less than your relationship to it, your degree of identification. Philosophy has long distinguished between the map and the territory, the representation versus the reality. Lucid dreaming reveals that your entire experience is always the map, never the territory. Waking life feels like direct contact with reality, but it's still your brain's construction based on sensory input. Dreams just make the construction process more obvious by removing the external input. All experience is generated, interpreted, constructed. This doesn't mean external reality doesn't exist. The universe exists independently of your perception, but your access to it is always mediated through your nervous system's representation. Lucid dreams help you notice the representation layer, the interface between you and world. Once noticed, you can't completely unnotice it. You become aware that you're always experiencing your brain's model of reality, not reality directly. The joy many people feel during lucid dreams might come from freedom. In waking life, consequences constrain actions. Social rules, physical laws, practical limitations shape everything you do. In lucid dreams, those constraints dissolve. You can fly, visit impossible places, speak with people who've died, explore without danger. It's not reality, but it's experience. And experience is what consciousness is made of. Yet too much freedom can feel empty. Some lucid dreamers report that after the initial excitement fades, controlling dreams becomes less interesting. Without resistance, challenge, or surprise, even fantasy grows dull. This suggests that meaning comes partly from limits, from navigating constraints, from the friction between desire and reality. Pure wish fulfillment might sound ideal but lacks the texture that makes life engaging. The impermanence of dreams mirrors the impermanence of everything. No matter how vivid, meaningful, or beautiful a lucid dream is, it ends when you wake. The people you meet, the places you visit, the experiences you have all dissolve. This temporariness applies to waking life too, just on a longer timescale. Lucid dreams teach you to appreciate experience while it lasts, knowing it won't. Some lucid dreamers describe moments of clarity where the dream becomes more vivid than waking life. Colors richer, sensations more intense, awareness heightened. These peak experiences, sometimes called super-lucid states, suggest that your brain can generate experiences exceeding normal waking consciousness in vividness. Perception isn't limited by external reality but by neural processing, and that processing can be turned up beyond typical levels. The question of control versus surrender appears again and again in lucid dreaming practice. Do you control the dream, or do you let it unfold and observe? Different practitioners prefer different approaches. Some seek mastery, Others seek witness, consciousness. Perhaps the deepest insight is that the dichotomy is false. Controlling and surrendering are both ways of relating to experience. Neither more authentic. Your brain creates entire worlds while you sleep, every night. During REM sleep, your mind constructs vivid experiences from memory fragments, emotions, and abstract patterns. Characters appear, conversations unfold, and landscapes emerge, all generated from within. These dream worlds feel real in the moment, complete with sights, sounds, and even physical sensations. Yet they vanish upon waking, like morning mist. Lucid dreaming shows that the boundary between conscious and unconscious is porous. Thoughts, images, and impulses arising from unconscious processes can be observed consciously. The observer can influence but not fully control what arises, and sometimes the observed seems to have its own intelligence, responding to questions, offering symbols, generating meanings that the conscious mind finds surprising or profound. So could lucid dreaming change how you understand consciousness? It already has, for those who experience it. The change isn't intellectual, but experiential. You feel what it means to be aware without a body, to observe without eyes, to think without external reference. You discover that consciousness doesn't require the conditions you normally assume it requires. The real change isn't in understanding sleep or dreams. It's in understanding yourself. You're more fluid than you thought. Your sense of self isn't fixed, but constructed moment by moment. Your experience isn't received, but created. Your consciousness isn't a thing, but a process. A verb, not a noun. Something you do rather than something you have. Ancient meditation texts speak of recognizing the dreamlike nature of waking reality. Not that waking life is literally a dream, but that it shares certain qualities: impermanence, construction, dependence on perception. Lucid dreaming offers a visceral experience of these teachings. Once you've watched your mind create an entire convincing world from nothing, watching it in waking life becomes easier. The gift of lucid dreaming isn't entertainment or control. It's perspective. You learn that you're larger than any single experience. That awareness can step back from content, that you contain multitudes. The dream character isn't you, but neither is the observer. Both arise within consciousness, which is the deeper you, spacious enough to hold everything. When you realize you're dreaming, the dream doesn't necessarily end. It continues, but your relationship to it transforms. The same might be said of waking life. Recognizing the constructed nature of your experience doesn't make it less real or meaningful. It just makes you less trapped by it, more able to hold it lightly, with curiosity rather than clinging. The mystery remains. Why is there subjective experience at all? Why does awareness feel like something? Why are you conscious instead of just a biological mechanism operating in the dark? Lucid dreaming highlights these questions without answering them. But sometimes questions matter more than answers, keeping you awake to wonder even while you sleep, gently curious about existence itself. In the end, lucid dreaming is about relationship, your relationship to your own mind. Most of life you spend identified with thoughts, emotions, sensations, taking them as simply what's happening. Lucidity creates distance, not cold detachment, but warm spaciousness, room to breathe. permission to observe without becoming what you observe. Gentle awareness, noticing awareness. Some nights you'll dream without realizing it. Your brain cycling through 4 to 6 REM periods, each one creating vivid experiences you'll never remember. Some nights you'll realize and wake immediately. Rare nights you'll realize and stay. Exploring, learning, watching your mind create and yourself witnessing creation. Each type of night teaches something. Both matter. Both are gifts. Perhaps consciousness is always lucid, always aware at some level. And what varies is how much of that awareness reaches the surface. Sleep suppresses but doesn't eliminate awareness. Deep meditation heightens it. Lucid dreaming illuminates it. The light of consciousness never truly goes out, only dims or brightens, like stars hidden by daylight but always present. What happens when you realize you're dreaming? You discover that realization itself is possible. That awareness can know itself. That mind can observe mind. You find that freedom exists even in sleep, that understanding transforms experience, that consciousness is somehow both the question and the answer, seeking itself endlessly, gently, without urgency or conclusion. The real answer isn't in the neuroscience or the philosophy. It's in the experience itself. That moment of recognition, that sudden knowing, that shift in perspective that feels like waking up without opening your eyes. It can't be fully explained, only experienced. And perhaps that's the deepest teaching of all, waiting quietly for you in sleep. And so, our quiet journey through the mysteries of lucid dreaming comes to a gentle close. We've traveled from the first moment of recognition in sleep's theater to the neural pathways that light up when awareness pierces through the dream veil, discovering along the way that consciousness itself is far more flexible than waking life suggests. From the experience of realizing you're dreaming to the deeper question of who does the realizing, we've glimpsed how awareness can be both observer and observed, both the dreamer and the dream. Lucid dreaming reminds us that consciousness is not fixed but fluid, not singular but layered. Much of what feels most real, your sense of self, your experience of the world, the boundary between inner and outer, happens in the quiet construction spaces of your mind, whether sleeping or waking. By learning to wake up within sleep, you discover that awareness itself is the deepest reality, present even in dreams, patient even in darkness. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can. As deep as possible, think about consciousness itself. Yours, mine, everyone listening. All awareness everywhere. Perhaps all connected in ways we don't yet understand. You are not alone in the universe of minds. Let your entire being dissolve into the ocean of consciousness, into dreamless rest, into the space before thought. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. This thoughtful exploration of the mind might bring rest to someone else searching for peace tonight. A gentle like and subscribe helps other sleepless souls discover this sanctuary too. It only takes a moment, but it means the world to us. One quiet tap, one sleepy soul at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight, exploring the edges of consciousness itself. You can allow these thoughts of dreams and awareness to fade now, like morning mist dissolving in sunlight, leaving only the gentle calm behind. Let your breathing deepen, Let your body feel heavier, as if gravity itself is pulling you down into your bed, into comfort, into rest. If sleep comes, let it carry you like a slow river flowing inevitably toward the sea, smoothly, gently, into a realm where questions dissolve and awareness rests. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, consciousness will still be mysterious. Awareness will still be remarkable. Dreams will still create entire worlds each night. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, dear dreamer. And remember, awareness never truly sleeps. It only changes form, becomes gentler, softer, like starlight dimming at dawn but never really gone. Whether you dream with knowing or without, whether you wake within sleep or sleep without waking, you are consciousness experiencing itself. Awareness, recognizing awareness. The universe noticing its own existence through your closed eyes. Fall asleep to gentle facts. Dream deeper with bedtime science. Relax, listen, and drift into sleep. Good night.